welcome everybody, and could we start by receiving any apologies for absence?
Yes, I've got apologies from Councillor O'Connor.
Okay, thank you. And item 2, receive the declarations of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests. Right, we now need to receive and approve the minutes of the meeting held not that long ago, on the 25th of September.
I propose we accept them. Second.
Are we all happy with the minutes as they've been? Yeah.
Who came with the notes?
Oh, yes, yes, sorry.
That's all right, don't worry.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Oh, right, I'll do it now.
Thank you, yeah.
Usually gets missed done now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, Chairman's announcements. I've got one of mine, you'll probably talk a bit. No. We've actually at long last had a response from the Stagecoach, which is a very strange response in many ways because it doesn't make sense. But it also challenges some of the things we've put in the letter, email that we sent, including the fact that they haven't changed the times of the buses when we know they have, and because we experienced that ourselves. So I've asked my wife Kay to go and take a photograph of the bus timetable as displayed in Margate, which we can then compare with what we've had previously. So when we make the response, we can do that. And they also, in their response, say they've only made minimal changes for some considerable time, which I don't call the fact that the bus doesn't go anywhere to Broadstairs at all now, any time of the day or night, minimal. So we will be responding to that, and Jill has just today given me the letter from Stagecoach, which is a bit curt actually, I felt, didn't you?
I did.
Why are you sort of complaining in a way?
Yeah.
I'm a bit puzzled by what you say about the bus service to Westgate. It starts by saying that, and I was just a bit puzzled. Well, we're not puzzled. No. Anyway, so we, I suppose we need to discuss that when
Yes.
and that's
I'll
on the
work
next.
on that with you.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's great. Okay, and the other thing which Jules passed to me as well is that please find an attached photo for the unveiling of the memorial plaque. And it's been noticed that this event has not been included on the event and tourism agenda for next week. So, and this is from Denise.
Yeah. So it's just really sorry for us to make everybody aware that that event's happening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I said it would be covered under the chairman's announcements.
Yes. So, if,
Yeah.
yeah.
Have all councillors been invited to the event?
Yes, they have. Yeah.
Thank
No, I've had mine. Yeah.
I thought it was a Heritage Centre event.
Well, sorry.
Yes, it is. Yes, but I think there was just an inquiry as to why it wasn't on the agenda. But I explained because it's not a town council event, it would be covered under the chairman's announcement. So, yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
Just let it know.
So, I assume by looking at the vacant chairs over there, we've had no
No.
request for public participation. Okay. And then perhaps Town Clerk could update us a bit more on what you've got in your bit on the, yeah,
Thank you,
just
Chairman.
request
Yeah,
what you
sorry if I
said.
could just have that. Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, just to let everybody know, I still haven't had a response from Kent County Council because they were included. Obviously, I've contacted three different organisations, so we're awaiting the response from Kent County Council. But we have,
Sorry, through the chair. In relation to
The
in
bus.
relation to
Bus.
Oh, we're back to
transport.
Yeah, transport for the town. We did a response, an email to the three organisations, Kent County Council, South Eastern Railway and Stagecoach,
Yeah.
to ask the questions. And we've had a response now from South Eastern Railway, thanking us very much for our contact. They said that they appreciate we would like additional services, and the same is true for nearly every community we serve. The level of service is determined by a combination of the service specifications set by the Department for Transport, the role in the stock and the infrastructure resources available, and the sometimes conflicting but equally legitimate demands from the communities around us. Within these constraints, we and the other operators do our best to devise a timetable that meets the needs of the majority of people who travel, but inevitably some will be disappointed. However, I will make the train planners aware of the Town Council aspirations, and should there be a possibility of increasing services in the next timetable change, then we can contact you. Finally, as local authority stakeholders, we suggest that if you have any further inquiries, would like a meeting, contact South Eastern Public Affairs team. So I've got the email now of the Public Affairs team, and I've actually had a response from the Passenger Services Director in relation to the aspirations for the train station. So that's a separate issue that's ongoing. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, there's some movement, and obviously it'd be good if we were party to some sort of discussions then. No, that's good. Councillor Crawford?
Chairman, can I take the opportunity to ask about something else to do with the
Transport.
station
Yeah.
railway?
Yeah.
Is this your new contact with Southern Railways? Is this the...
That response wasn't from that contact, that's from the customer services team, but I've got a contact who I'm arranging a meeting in November for discussions about the train station and how we can work with South Eastern Railway to improve the look of it, and talk about timetables and things at the same time.
Excellent, that's what I wanted to ask about. The sign, that big yellow sign that residents have objected to. I've said it's right on the, it seems to be on the cusp. It's not directly in conflict with the rules and regs,
No.
but at the same time, it's unsightly. And I wondered if you could ask your railway person about it.
Okay, no problem.
And also there was, and I haven't, this isn't too good because I haven't been back to check, but there was a massive great hole by one of the lampposts that somebody, it was in front of this sign, the big yellow sign. Somebody could go down it and claim.
Okay, no
But that's
One
I'll try and see, before you have that meeting, I'll pop over and see if it's still...
Thank you.
of the other local residents stopped me and said he knew I'd been involved in getting the place clean. He said that there'd been another week when nobody had appeared. I can't say
No.
for definite because I haven't been in the station this week. But
Okay.
that's what they said. Yeah. So
Thank you.
if you're going to ring about there's someone normally on duty from 6 till 11 every day. But they told me that nobody had been there for a whole week again. When I thought we got over that, and that means it's not cleaned again for a week because the same person who issues the ticket starts cleaning.
Right.
So I went and had a look, and it did seem to have been cleaned, but that was fairly regularly up until this point. So if we could mention that, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, that's the transport update. So we need an events update report. Firstly, on the Remembrance Day parade. Is that the right word, really? Parade, do you think? Remembrance parade? I don't know. Do you think
Service and a parade.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a scouts on there.
Yes.
They don't march there. Okay, can we have a bit of an update on that one, please?
Thank you. Yeah, so I've put out Jasmine's put out the email now for volunteers for stewards for the event. So if any members still haven't responded, I'd really appreciate to let me know how many of you are available. That would be good. I've been liaising with a gentleman who's the chief steward, who goes to the Remembrance Parade and service meetings with us at the church. So we've met today to discuss the steward training that we're going to be doing. And
he's very on the ball, that bloke.
Very so. And
it's can't remember the guy's name, but he's an ex-military person himself, and he's very organised in a military capacity, I think.
Very organised.
Yeah.
I've also been in contact with the church and liaising with them about refreshments after the parade, because I'm certainly going to be contributing some homemade items, and we put that on social media as well, try and get the...
we looked at it on social media as well. If you wanted to know cakes, they'd be kindly received, warmly received.
Warmly.
Yeah. I don't know if that means they need to be hot because it's freezing cold weather.
Yeah, I've actually had an offer from the church ladies that if there's anything that needs heating up, like sausage rolls or something like that, they'll be on hand to...
That's nice.
Yeah, it is nice. Also, the next meeting at the church, I believe, is the 1st of November, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're booked in to go on for that. And I've confirmed with the traffic management company as well, because obviously they'll be providing the signage. So literally this week now I've got to work on getting the flyers and things ready for residents who are going to be affected, so we can let them know it's happening. And so we're on the home run now for that event. It's all coming together.
Excellent, well done. Have you heard yet when the wreaths will be delivered, or have you got them?
The wreaths have been delivered.
Excellent. Because they were very late last year, only about a week or 10 days before. That's good. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, just quickly, just through the chair for Jill. With the road closure signage, have we confirmed that we have sandbags as opposed to the...
I'm going to be sourcing those this week. Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
No problems.
Keep us on the ground with it as well, than flying us away.
Yeah, well, I'll happily go through my volunteer if I don't have to tackle 2 signs and run all the passengers.
Just as a footnote, so those signs that you had last year will be lighter weight than what you're going to be having this year, so it won't be so much of an issue, but I will make sure we've got sandbags as well.
No.
Thank you. And the Beacon event, please.
Yes, the Beacon event. Literally, the same gentleman who's kindly offered, or has been chief steward for the parade, is going to be helping me with the Beacon event. He's actually offered to read the names of the 80 fallen men during these, or after the short service that Reverend Kalua's kindly agreed to do. And I've been in touch with Millie's Bar, so the refreshments after the event are going to be at Millie's Bar, that's confirmed. I've ordered kindly today, we've ordered the gas, we've ordered the emergency lighting generators that we'll need. All the documentation's been agreed by Thanet District Council, that's all done. We've got the last post on the CD recording, but I've just got to find something to play it on yet, because the cadet band that are coming haven't got a bugler, so it's a shame, but they're stretched everywhere. We've got a lot of the scouts coming. I think there's 50 of them all together with the leaders, because obviously we need enough volunteers to hold these lanterns of ours, and the lanterns are ordered as well, so that was agreed at the Finance Committee. So that one again is coming together nicely.
Excellent. That's cool.
For the PA, what do we need?
So I've got 2 loud hailers, which I'm hopefully relying on for the service and everything when we're down near the beach huts. When we get up to the top, obviously with the beacon, that's where I'll probably need the PA system so we can play this. So I've just got to work on that to see what I can, because obviously with the emergency lighting, they've got sockets, so we'll be able to plug something into the sockets up there. But it's what we use and you know, how effective it is. So I've got to arrange, hopefully, everyone that volunteers for the beacon, I want a familiarity training session the week before, so the weekend. We take the beacon out. It's currently sat in my garage, waiting for the gas. We put it together. I put it together so I know it's all there. So once we've got the gas, then we can, you know, trial it, make sure it's all working correctly. And I've got the fire extinguisher ready as well. Hopefully we won't need that. But yeah, so all the health and safety parts of it are covered. Yeah.
Did we hear back from the RAF people at all?
Yes. Hopefully, he said there should be 2 of their personnel attending.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Have we got a generator?
I've got 2 generators ordered.
You've got that?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. That because we need those for both sets of emergency lighting. Because basically we need one lot of emergency lighting where the choir are, and then up on the beacon as well. Yeah. And another thing that had happened, which was a lovely surprise this week, there are 3 people that live in Westgate that actually go and take part in these Burma
Reunion.
Yes, and they've got all the regalia and even weapons that have been decommissioned, and they've offered to come along to our event in full regalia, just to support us, and so that'd be fantastic.
Oh, that's really nice.
It's lovely.
Very good.
It's lovely.
Because just going back to the generators, are we buying the generators or hiring them, or what's the situation?
We're hiring them.
Okay.
So,
It was just quickly, with regards to this, are you looking to source a CD player? Is that?
If there is one that somebody's aware of that I could use, I mean, that would be ideal. But bear in mind, it's going to be an open site. It's going to be maybe a little bit windy, so it's got to be something. And I didn't know whether our PA system, I could use that in some way to.
Yeah, because you should be able to, depending what the tracks you are, I can copy them onto a phone or a source, and then it'll just be a case of just being plugged into the PA.
Thank you.
But it'll just be a case of knowing which tracks are required at the time.
Thank
So
you.
we'll talk about that
Thank you.
afterwards.
one thing I was going to add, I had a letter this week from British Legion, which has got links with them anyway, asking whether we needed anything like bunting for the event, because they're discounting it for this particular event. And it looked quite cheap actually, so I didn't know if that might be something we could acquire. I mean, don't need to use it just for this event, obviously, but we could have it for basically for as long as forever basically, if we're going to buy it. But I'll talk to you about that, because I think
Yes,
it might be
please.
nice to have
Might be nice.
a few Union Jack bunting sort of flags and whatever around. I'll let you know anyway. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on that? No. Okay. And pancake races. See, goes from one thing, doesn't it? You're thinking, I can't see the connection with the Remembrance Day service, Christmas lights, and then we're on the pancakes. Yeah.
Only to say that the documentation, I'm in the middle of reviewing it for the event, and it will be going, if not this week, definitely next week. So I've got well inside my 14-week timeline.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, you're in the hot seat again. Westgate Blue.
Thank you.
With an update, please.
Yes. So I've been doing some research, and obviously talking about budgets at the moment, that's something that's going to be, in the forefront of everybody's mind. Now, I have got an example of a system that's been in place for a number of years. So, I mean, this is sort of aspirational that we could be working towards, but it does give, such good ideas about, ticking the eco-friendly, community, everything that really we're striving to achieve. Is, you could work it in with the Westgate Day event, all sorts of things like that. So if anybody wants to look through some of this, I mean, there's quite a lot of information here. There's also some funding opportunities that Councillor Califf's brought to my attention. So, for instance, there's funding available if you involve young people and you involve wildflowers. So that's something we can, I think, incorporate and to achieve the funding. And I had a really useful meeting with the Open Spaces Manager at Thanet District Council, and she's fully behind anything like this. She will support us. And she said, if we can get somebody to actually do the plan of what we want to try and achieve, and she did say in year one, don't be too ambitious, which I think is a fair comment. But she's prepared, you know, if we can give her a plan of what we're trying to achieve, she'll work with us. And the equipment that Thanet District Council have, you know, they will use for us, you know, at no cost, because it's works that they will be doing elsewhere anyway. So, and she's more than happy to support us and get involved actually working with us in a working group or whatever capacity. You know, if we don't go down the working group, she's happy to come and have meetings and support what we're doing. So I just thought that was really positive, actually.
Definitely.
So I think in the first instance, I need to find somebody who has the expertise in gardening, planning.
Floral displays.
Yeah. We need to come up really, she said, just loosely to start with a route. So for instance, you could choose to start at the gardens, the Adrian Square and Ethelbert Square, and then walk towards the memorial. And then you could use the memorial gardens that walk back along Sea Road. So those beds that are all, you know, along that route could be, you know, community groups could volunteer to get involved. So you could have an adopt a bed, you know, for a community group. You could apply for funding to get seed. We can try and work with the Allotments Association and people at Lymington to ask if they can be prepared to grow things from seed bulbs. You know, and I think it could be a really good community. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, item number 9. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just going to say, if funding's available to get children involved, we could involve the school, St Saviour's School, and could we actually incorporate the station and have we could do wildflowers at the station, couldn't we?
I think what she was saying to me, you could do other planting in the town, that's not a problem, but you have to have a designated route.
Right.
Because she said if you try and link the town all the way through, what they'll do is when they're walking the route, they'll say, oh, your litter bin there isn't up to, you know, if you want to compete, then you've got to have that route to be, you know, there's things like the benches have got to be addressed by volunteers, you know, getting those up to, you know, so there's quite a bit to consider.
I'm with it, yeah.
But it's nothing to say that we couldn't do some other things.
Well, that's something you could expand.
Exactly.
Into, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if I understood, thank you, Chair. If I understood correctly, you can have a sort of advisory visit from the people who run Gluten in Bloom if you feel you're not ready to compete yet, and that might be an appropriate step for a first year.
Yes.
The second is that the people around Lymington Road, apparently there are large greenhouses around that area, and Denise Packer, who works as a gardener, is prepared to work with the lady who runs the shop there to start preparing flowers and so on. But obviously, you know, it's now late October. We really need to get our to get on with this very quickly if it's going to look reasonable next June, July. And I think one of the issues would be the budget, which we'll perhaps come to later. But the other is quickly putting together a group of people who can drive this forward.
Yeah.
Could we get businesses in Westgate to
I think we should.
contribute?
I think we should. Yeah.
Yes. No, that's something that we definitely need to work on, and I think this is one of the initiatives that hopefully we can get people involved with, Westgate Day being another one. So yeah, I think it's a prime opportunity to be approaching them and telling them about all the good things that we've got in the pipeline.
Yes, one of my gleams in the eye is a business forum for Westgate. I've contacted one or two people. It would be good to have more, but to group together some of the people who invest in Westgate, shop owners and others who are prepared to sponsor events and so on. And it's not just having the money; it's having the will to to make the town better. And I think they could be very, very useful partners.
Okay. Well, I see Councillor Page is here and she's on the agenda, so it's your opportunity to give us an update on the Westgate Day event, which is interesting because that should be linking in with what we've just been discussing as well. Really.
Thank you for inviting me this evening. So, just to confirm, we've got Councillors Matthew Scott, Councillor Robert McAuliffe, myself and Town Clerk Jill Gray, working together at the moment with about half a dozen members of the community. And the members of the community will increase as we need people to be brought in and make contributions or participate as we go forward. I can confirm that we had a meeting with school representatives about 2 or 3 weeks ago to outline the concept of and plans for Westgate Day. We discussed the school projects and this was received positively, and the school representatives believe that this is perfectly achievable, and they were quite pleased at the prospect of having their schools involved. I've been formulating what I'm referring to as the project pack, and that is a pack that is being prepared which will go out to the schools with information related to the projects which are being suggested that the schools can work on. This is currently being typed into formal documents, and the pack comprises an overview to explain the concept, an application form, a consent form for parents, guardians and supervisors, notes for guidance for teachers and supervisors, and notes for guidance for the applicants. Our next meeting with the school representatives will be in the 3rd week of November. We are still to confirm the date, but we will be meeting again. We also had our first meeting of the working party a couple of weeks ago, and we'll be meeting again next Monday. So we've had initial discussions where we got some extra ideas and suggestions which we can look into. But our first aim is to be looking into the possibilities for fundraising and sponsorship. And as part of our evidence for any applications we may wish to make, the project pack which I'm preparing is going to form a basis for that, because I've been advised that part of the evidence needs to prove that there is an educational perspective to the application, and I believe that the project pack should cover all of those aspects. As we go forward with plans, we will be including more members of the town or the community wherever possible, so that they can play their part in the plans and make a contribution to the event. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Could I ask which schools are involved, and did they raise particular themes that they would like to see covered in the general framework of Westgate Day?
We're looking at the nurseries, so at the moment we have Piggy Bank, but I'm also going to approach the preschool group that meets over at Lymington. King Cuthbert, St Crispin's, St Saviour's. We're also going to expand, sorry?
Chatfield.
Chartfield is on the list, yes. Yes, I did forget Chartfield, but they are included. But we are also looking at expanding that further afield to include people who might be on the fringe. So, for example, yesterday I contacted RNID, Royal National Institute for the Deaf, who currently are calling themselves Action Against Hearing Loss. I spoke to the Head of Services for Kent, who has provided me with the names of the 2 local managers, because we'd like to reach out to them. A discussion with him indicated that he felt that that would be a possibility for the young people that they have in their care, and he would welcome that approach to be made. So I would hope that we could include them at the next meeting. One of the people on the working party suggested we should reach out to one of the foster homes as well. In terms of your question about project work, we, as a working party, are going to suggest the projects as part of the project pack. And those will be history and heritage, writing and poetry, art and creativity, environment and coast. And as part of the project pack, with the notes for guidance to applicants, I have included a section for each of those project themes with bullet points to get people's minds working about aspects of the town in each of those themes, which could lead them to the projects that they might want to work on. It's not been left completely blank. I've given as much as this assistance as possible there. I've also included on the application form tick boxes where they can indicate which themes they're applying to do a project on. So there will be a formal application which needs to come back to us. But in addition, I've added another tick box at the end for intergenerational work. And that would allow schools to choose to do a project from those 4 themes, but in conjunction with older people in the town. So it's encouraging young people to work with senior people and perhaps produce a project that way. And on the back of that, I've got a list of our care homes in the town, which I would like to write to, just to let them know what we're doing, so that should anybody approach them, it won't be a complete surprise for them.
Councillor Comfort.
Martinez.
Thank you.
Well, that sounds fantastic, firstly. I mean, I think it's good that you've got those themes, because I think it helps to group activity. I like the intergenerational aspect as well. There was some talk in relation to the remembrance events to contact people who might have had relatives who were commemorated on the war memorial, but it might be interesting for us actually to have a list of residents who've seen Westgate change over the years, and maybe we could have them as a sort of resource group to know more about the history of the town. I'm sure the Heritage Association has those kind of links.
I think that's a very good suggestion, because there may be a number of senior people in the town who were born here and have lived through much of the history and can share that knowledge with our young people firsthand. And there's nothing better than firsthand shared knowledge and experience.
Yeah, that'd be really good. And there are 2 things. Did you hear from the Ursuline
Have we heard from
No.
them?
No, we haven't. No.
Oh, because I did a social chase up of that, but I'll chase it up again. Thank you, if you want me to. Thank you.
Yes, please, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you, that would be kind.
And also, with this intergenerational, at St Michael's Care Home, they've got a very active entertainment manager. I see her quite regularly, so could I give her your number?
Yes, yes.
Because I'm not, I think her name's Debbie, but I wouldn't like to.
Okay. Or if she emails me on my .gov.uk.
Oh yes, what am I saying? Yes, I'll give her your email address, because we've already forged links with St Michael's, although there's been a problem. Oh no, there's just a problem. They haven't been seemed to be able to get through to us, and we haven't.
Yes.
We've just received an invitation.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes, there are any- I know what you're going to say, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, you can say it, yeah.
And I didn't know if you are available to attend, because I was certainly going to attend, if you would, because I know it's your a body, isn't it, that you're linked to?
Yes.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, well, yeah. Yeah, I don't know why, but they seem to have had difficulty contacting us,
Mm.
because they were planning to regularly tell us events that they had, but then it just dried up for some
Yeah.
reason. I'm not sure why, but
Yes, she mentioned it the last time I
Yeah,
saw her, which
yeah.
was the week before last.
yeah, yeah. Well, perhaps that's another good thing, we can reinstate that connection as well, really. And it was super. I was just thinking about what we said about Westgate in Bloom and involving being brought up in central London. There was something called the London Flower Growers Guild, and the schools were linked, and every child was given a daffodil bulb in the school, and then on one day, subsequently, they all came to the school with the daffodils that they'd grown, and it was absolutely fantastic seeing these sometimes fairly big kids coming down with a huge great daffodil. And I just thought, it's obviously been going for, well, it was, even then it was over 100 years, so it was a case of, this is trying to bring the countryside to what was Peckham, where I was living. And I just thought something like that would be, if you just gave, bit of wrong time of the year for daffodils in bloom, but something where they could actually participate in the growing of something themselves, and then seeing them displayed together.
Would it be possible to keep that maybe on the back burner for
Yeah.
the following year?
Yeah, exactly.
When we try to expand this
Yeah.
whole Westgate Day
Definitely.
and make it a little bit bigger, we could add that as another category for the
Yeah.
projects.
Exactly. Just made me think as that happened. So that was actually interesting. That. Okay. Has the clerk got anything else to add? Do you think?
No.
Well, that's just leaves the date of the next meeting being on the 27th of November. And pardon?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I didn't have anything to say.
I didn't know what you said.
Well, there's an addendum.
Oh,
Yes,
the
sorry,
addendum.
yes,
Sorry.
yeah, yeah,
I beg your
yeah,
pardon.
yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Clearly is an addendum, yeah. Right. The addendum being the budget discussion.
Yes.
We were talking previously, we decided that, we found that I don't think the amount had ever gone up since we first had budgeted as a council for events and tourism. So we've got sort of the current amount that we've potentially spending, and perhaps you'd like to say a bit more, please.
Thank you, yes. So this events and tourism table, I worked on with Councillor O'Connor, and basically it's just to give you an outline of the events that we anticipate. I'm not saying they will be happening next year, potentially it could be Punch and Judy, pancake races, the Christmas lights, Christmas tree and Westgate Day. So it's just really to give you an idea of potentially breaking it down. So the overall budget proposed on this table is £7,000, and then there's just a bit of a breakdown to give you an idea how much could be allocated to each event. Just so that you've got some knowledge about what's been spent so far this year. So the pancakes came in at £361 this year, and the Punch and Judy shows just over, it was £1,078 because we had £700
From
Kent County Council funding. So that's just those two this year. Obviously at the moment with the Beacon event, I can get those costings probably done this week because I've got some of the hard costs coming in now. So really it was just to have those discussions this evening about where you think the budget might potentially be for next year and what sort of events you would like to have.
Thank you. I would like to see an allocation for Westgate in Bloom. I know that these things are as long as a piece of string in the sense that you can either allocate a budget and then see what you can do for that, or try and get an estimate in for what one might like to see in terms of first year's activities. But I do think that this is something that will attract a lot of attention and generate a lot of goodwill in the town, and that we ought to back it to a reasonable extent. I think we also need to think for Westgate in Bloom who will actually be managing, whether there will be an organisation which has a sort of treasurer and a recognised structure. Which is why we asked the question about the working group. But as long as there is someone or some organisation which is responsible for project management, I think that's the main thing.
Yes, I was going to say, would it be possible to find out who is actually in favour of the Punch and Judy, because that money would be better spent on Westgate in Bloom. The Punch and Judy, well, I've said before what I feel about that personally, and it didn't change. I mean, it was a very good show this year, but hitting a baby over the head with a stick isn't really good.
Yeah.
And most people came, I think, for the face painting, and the hard work was really done. I mean, some of us turned up, but the town clerk was there every day. Are we going to have a Punch and Judy again?
Well, we'd already had this discussion, haven't we, about possibly or probably not, because of other events that were going on. Although it was nearly self-funding in the Punch and Judy side of that, the bigger expense was on the face painting, wasn't it? Yeah. And I think we had discussion about whether some people came and expected to pay anyway or pay something, but of course we had the collection for the RNLI and someone else, I can't remember who it was. So I think that is something that probably I would think maybe not, but that's for us to decide really.
Yeah, because Westgate and Bloom will involve a great many more people.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if we go for the grants with the schools and...
Yeah. So, Councillor Scott, sorry.
Yeah, your hand up first, so...
Okay, he's chair.
No problem. I mean, just coming with the Punch and Judy, do we know, are we sort of unique into the sense that, because to my understanding, I've been on the town council for only a year, but I mean, obviously we had one last year in 2016, 2017. 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's going to be considered an annual thing with the residents, just getting a sort of a takeover, because we had 2 sessions, didn't we? For 2018.
Yes.
I don't know, maybe if people are expecting that just to generate the traffic into Westgate, because it still might be just a unique thing for Thanet possibly, if like not many towns are still doing this, because I know some people are still in favour of it. If maybe we just reduce it down to just the one session, then it will help the costs and then transfer that fundage. I mean, or is that going to be not much difference? I'm just thinking because some people are still quite supportive of the traditional aspect of it, and if we're still unique to be in the seaside town that still produce that kind of entertainment.
And a number of people have said that. In fact, there was a write-up in one of the papers about it as well, saying something like, oh, tradition comes back to Westgate or something like that. It was in one of the small bits that you have sometimes in the Gazette. But, and a couple of residents have said, elderly residents have said that. But yeah, it's a good point, and it's something for us to discuss really. Councillor Pennington.
Rather on the same lines, I wondered, in relation to the KCC grant, firstly, is it per day? In other words, if we did one day, would we get £350? Secondly, how sure are we that the KCC grant will still be available for 2019 at the same level? Because I'm happy to go along with it as long as we don't bear the full cost. And if the costs can be offset by KCC to this extent, you know, maybe we can carry on at least for 1 year.
We did speak to her, didn't we?
I was going to say, I have spoken to Kent County Council, and obviously they can't guarantee that the members' grant scheme will be there next year. Obviously everyone's in the same position where budgets get cut, so they can't tell me at this time if that scheme would still be open. I mean, certainly we could look at other potential funding opportunities, but it's whether or not members feel that they want to have more of the budget in the Westgate Day. With Westgate Day being in July, and then you're talking about August Bank Holiday, that's fairly close. That's all I'd say really is, you know, whether or not you want an event earlier in the year, whether you want something that will support Westgate Day, that will actually raise money towards Westgate Day, that's something else you could think about. Maybe an April-May event that could bring in footfall to the gardens, you know, but also a possibility of raising funds towards Westgate Day. That's something else to think about.
I mean, we did talk to the Kent County councillor who was at one of the meetings here, the one side, and she was the one who'd applied for the grant on our behalf, and she did say that if we were wanting to apply again for funding, she would support it. That's what she said. So, but of course, as Clark rightly said, we don't know what, if any, there's going to be from Kent funding for anything, I suppose, at this time, do we?
Will we know in February? Presumably they
must
run the budget before.
Like I say, they're probably having the conversations already, but when they go public with it, I wouldn't like to say. Sometimes it's not until April, but yeah, because we had this before when I worked at Thanet District Council. You don't quite know sometimes until, you know, they might not go public with it until April, which is when they'll go presumably public for all their residents, and you know, we all know. Yeah.
How early on do we have to book Punch and Judy?
Next question.
At least 14 weeks before the event.
At least?
At least 14 weeks before the event.
That's 3.5 months.
So that would be, is it March, April time, isn't it? Yes. Yeah.
So we don't need to decide.
Because it was in August before, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So if it was at the end of August, you'd be applying in March, April time.
You'd have to apply immediately, well, as soon as you knew, really. KCC. Or would you apply and then hope to get the grant?
That's the other thing, because if the grant's open on the 1st of April, which is I think when they do, you would apply then, but you wouldn't know possibly for 4 to 5 weeks, 6 weeks sometimes. So it just, I mean, you could apply, put into for the planning, the land hire fee and everything, And then if it didn't happen and you wanted to cancel, you could always do, you know, obviously you'd lose your event application fee, which is £75. You know, I mean, it's not great, but you know, it's something.
With this, the grants that we apply, do they have to be used specifically for the thing that we suggest, so i.e. the Punch and Judy, or can we apply for the grant and if it doesn't come in time to offset for the Punch and Judy, we can offset it for another event? I mean, it has to be specifically for the...
Yeah, because every grant application you're doing, you have to give all the evidence of what
Right.
you're doing, yeah, and then do the evaluation following, so it has to be specifically spent exactly what you're stipulating as well.
Right, okay.
Welcome to the product sector.
Yeah. That's confident.
Did we get any feedback from the West Bay Cafe after the Punch and Judy show?
Yeah, only to say that thank you for making their day, because I think it would have been a very poor weekend for them if we hadn't have been there.
Financially,
Yeah, it meant that they had a lot more
There's the
footfall.
thought.
Do you
There's the
think
thought.
that they would contribute? And do you think the kiosk, the ice cream kiosk, might contribute?
I mean, the guy in the West Bay Cafe is obviously very supportive of so many things. I mean, it's him who supported the repainting of the shelter and redecorating the shelter. He donated the funds for the paint and the woodwork, and it was our guys who then obviously repaired the shelter. And we had another meeting where he's now doing the evening for the charity evening, which is supplying the property, the use of the cafe free, plus providing things. So he's very community aware. I suppose it's a possibility. I suppose we can overdo things maybe with one individual, but I mean, I dare say he wouldn't be adverse to us asking him and approaching him. Yeah. So,
Might there be any other groups? But I suppose it's just got to be people on the seafront, hasn't it, down London Prom?
I mean, I suppose if we applied for Punch and, or if we booked the place, and there was no Punch and Judy, well, we couldn't get one, then one assumes there could be other children's entertainment that perhaps we could fill that gap with. We mentioned face painting, but that was more expensive. That was quite expensive, really, wasn't it? And if we did that, we'd have to, I think, consider a charge for that, which in a way defeats the object of having it as to some extent, because it's going to eliminate some who won't be able to afford it and wouldn't think it reasonable to do that. So there might be other things. I mean, as you know, we tried to get some sort of roundabout things, didn't we? I was just amazed how expensive they were. I thought they would come wanting to get money, but how much was it? £800, wasn't it?
About £500 a day.
A day, yeah. For them to come and make money, I just found it quite remarkable. But that was, and you tried a couple of things, didn't you? Yeah. So,
And all I'd say about that sort of thing, it's the same as bouncy castles. It's very weather dependent. I mean, certainly if we'd had all that all arranged for that weekend, it wouldn't have happened. None of that would have happened.
no.
You know, and I think that's the other issue with August Bank Holiday. It's quite late in the season, and you are pushing the boundaries of the weather. I mean, it could be nice, but equally it could be quite nasty like it was this year. So that's another thing I think to think about as well.
So, decision.
Do we clearly have to make a decision tonight, or or do we allocate some money in terms of events or something?
Yeah, I think if you can come to a decision about the all-round figure, if you're looking at this and think that actually £7,000 seems a reasonable proposal and it fits with, you could maybe tweak some of this, you wouldn't have to spend maybe so much on Christmas tree, something like that you could tweak. And if you decide you don't do Punch and Judy show, obviously that could go to West, or part of that could go to Westgate and Bloom. So, I mean, it's not that you've got to decide specific, not for specific, but I think to get a ballpark figure so that something to go to the finance committee to put into the budget setting process would be really good and helpful.
Councillor Payne.
I would vote for 7,000, yes, because we're a tourist town and this is the Events and Tourism Committee.
Mhm.
I know we can get grants. There are all sorts of grants that are available, especially for, for our town clerk to apply for. And yes,
Yeah, just to follow on from Councillor Conford, really. I mean, I'm in favour. Personally, I just think the Events and Tourism Committee, its best interest is to get footfall into Westgate. And if we can get more footfall into Westgate, business will thrive, more business will come, and yeah, so I feel it's a necessary increase.
Councillor Payne.
I would like to. Is this a £500 for Westgate in Bloom?
No, there's an allocation there for pancake races that's £500, but it didn't actually cost £500 this year. It was £380. So that's allowing for a slight
No,
increase.
opposite line 7700.
Oh, sorry, down there. Oh, No, that's not Westgate. Yes, I think that is meant to be Westgate in Bloom. Yes, because it hasn't got the. That's what threw me. Yeah, there's nothing against it. Yeah.
Well, I'll say I'd be in favour of a bit more than 7,000.
more than.
Yeah, I would say 1,000 for Westgate in Bloom and put it for 7,500.
Yeah.
But I don't know how other people feel about that.
Councillor Conford.
Personally, I think we should work harder on getting funding locally, get people involved, because if the precept goes up at this point in time, I don't know. I think we should be able to manage with 7, even though we're having Westgate, the Westgate Day. No, it's involving people, isn't it? Getting people. I mean, all these things with tourism, as Councillor Scott says, it's good for the town, and if the town can contribute.
Would people like to make I think Councillor Pennington, you've been asked how much you were considering reasonable, yeah? What would you proposing?
I would prefer to put it up to 7,500 and have 1,000 for Westgate in Bloom. And if there are savings, well, there are possibly new initiatives that we could fund. I'm not sure. I mean, Christmas lights and Christmas trees looks, to me, quite low compared with the sums that we were talking about.
I was going to say, maybe if we're looking to just keep it in the 7,000, just a suggestion, as Councillor Cornford mentioned with the Punch and Judy, if we are looking to maybe offset the 500 there and put it into the Westgate and Bloom, as you mentioned yourself, with the August bank holiday being quite temperamental with the weather, I understood that one turnout wasn't particularly as great as the other turnout. And then we can just play it by ear in terms of what the weather's going to be like on that day, and then choose that day. Well, I know it's quite difficult to obviously do that in respect, but
I don't know.
I mean, that might just be an idea, because understanding the costings, the person that we went for was around about the Punch and Judy chap was
£700 for 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there we might potentially save, then hopefully find some maybe with a better cost. That's my idea if we're wanting to just stay in the budget, not risk putting the precept up.
Okay.
So would anyone like to make a proposal?
I mean, for the chair, I personally feel that for the events and tourism, it will be a right way to go, and I feel that's where some funding should be going to. I feel that we should personally have an interest in what we've got going ahead with Westgate Day, the Christmas lights. I mean, it's inclusive to the community, so I feel this is where funding should be going with the budget.
How much?
Well, I mean, we've got a 7,000 figure here. I mean, I personally don't want to make the decision there, having a look at this when it comes to sort of finances. I know what the number is, but breaking it down sometimes it's hard to sort of work out. So I make my proposal of maybe just offsetting the cost of 500 from Punch and Judy and placing it into the Westgate and Blue.
Okay.
So your proposal is for 7,000?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
No, I was going to say something.
Oh, sorry, oh, go on.
I was going to say that maybe if we went into the budget with as Councillor Pennington said, with 7,500, and it got knocked back by F&GP, we could then stick with the 7.
I'm happy with that. I'll second it.
Second that.
So, all those in favour of 7,500?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much.
Do we need to do any more on that, or is that sufficient, do you think, at this point?
That's sufficient, thank you, yeah, because that we can be fed to the Finance and General Purposes Committee then, as your contribution to the budget process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, meeting, oh sorry, Councillor Crawford.
Just one thing, we've talked in the past about the doctor bench,
Yes.
and I wondered what members thought about these two designs. Now this one looks sturdy, but it doesn't have the armrests, and I did think that perhaps older people, they need some, if they haven't got a stick to push themselves up with, then perhaps arms on the bench. I mean, we've got that deteriorating in very bad condition bench at Lymington at the top. The actual structure of it, the metal parts are rusted and the slats are missing. And it was brought up at the surgery. So, what would we have to do if somebody said, look, here's a bench, I want to install it? What's the process? Do you know? Sort of offhand, Jill, like a million other things that you might know.
Yes, I can contact the Open Spaces manager at Thanet District Council and ask her, because obviously they would need to install it, we couldn't install it ourselves, so I'd need to ask if the minor works team could do that for us. So I can certainly do all the research for you and let you know.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a concrete base now.
Does it definitely? It says root fixed or base plated. I took that root fixed as being,
I don't know.
well, this one's got. Well, we can could we make a start by asking?
Absolutely.
Yeah, make some
Absolutely.
inquiries
Yeah.
about what's necessary, yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No problem.
Good. Thank you.
Any other business from anybody? And the meeting is closed at 20:06.